Welcome, friends, to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon. Guys and girls, you know the drill. I'm a retired New York City police detective, and if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, consider hitting the subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and Ed Wallace when we go live or upload another video. Hey, today I want to talk to you about the Gag Order. Bryan Kohberger. People are just going nuts over this thing. And not only is it the family of some of the victims, one family in particular, but the defense, the prosecution, the media, everybody wants to know more information. And that's human nature. Everybody wants to know. The victims' families, they want to know. We need to get into it. We're going to talk a little bit about it. I'm sure that there's a ton of people who have already spoken on this. I waited for the weekend to kind of come to a close to bring this to you. So I want to just say a special thank you to you, the Patreon supporters, channel members, the folks who subscribe and watch the replays, who leave messages like Kel here saying hello to me and wishing me well. My back is healing up good. The skin cancer is right in the middle of my back. So it's kind of hard for me to do anything with it. But I have my wife who's taking care of it. And she's doing everything that she can to help me heal up. So, there's so many people like, news media and folks who are in the true crime community want information. They want the information and they want it now. But we realize from the law enforcement component, from the criminal justice component, and from the defense, they're entitled to see all of the evidence. Obviously, the prosecution has to hand over all their documents and all of their evidence that they have against the defendant. But there's no expectation to it being put out in a public realm if it's going to jeopardize a fair trial for the defendant and for the victims. And the sooner that we kind of get a grasp on that and understand it, the better off we'll be. And there are a lot of people who are trying to stir up the pot and make it seem like, well, it's supposed to be a public forum. It's supposed to be out there. That's debatable. If the defense has that in their tool belt at the end of the trial and are able to say that this thing didn't go off fairly, then that's a crutch that we don't really want to give them, right? So it's really difficult. And Richella and Pete Pranzo's in the chat. I want to say thank you for this card. I got this card in the mail, and it says, you know why you're getting this card instead of a plant? And you open it up on the inside, and it says, so you don't have to take care of anything but yourself. Thoughtful, isn't it? Always in our thoughts, all our best, Pete and Richella Pranzo. And she says also, say hello to your beautiful wife, Janine, as well. Thank you guys for this card and for everybody who's been checking in with me. It's really greatly appreciated. So I wanted to show you guys a couple of things. And there was a lot of speculation online with the online sleuthing community and people who are following true crime and creators and so forth. There was a big rumble about the judges being changed, and I just wanted you guys to hear and see the exact explanation why the judges were changed in this case, why it went from, the judge in the lower court, in the magistrate court, that was Judge Megan Marshall, and then now it's put before Judge. It's kind of weird, right? But we heard that from Burkhart Law. Our good friend from Burkhart Law, she explained to us that Judge was probably going to be on this case as it goes to trial. And she was right. She said that months and months ago, right here on Crime Time with DutyRon. But let's play this little piece. It's from Creme 2, I believe. And they have explained the unexpected change of judges in the Moscow murder trial. So I think it's important that we all hear it and see it. So I'm going to add this to the stream and let you guys listen to it.
The case against the suspect in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students has generated a lot of interest on social media and a lot of false claims. One of those pieces of misinformation follows a recent change of judges. Mark Hanrahan is here to verify.
On May 22nd, murder suspect Bryan Kohberger appeared before Latah County Judge John Judge.
You also have a right of silence. That right is protected under the Idaho and federal constitutions, so you can remain silent throughout these court proceedings, and that can't be held against you in any way.
In the courtroom, Kohberger was formally charged with the murders of Madison Mogan, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. This was the first time Judge Judge has been involved, leading one viewer to ask, was the judge changed unexpectedly on the Moscow murders case? Let's verify. Our sources are Latah County District Court, the Idaho Supreme Court, and the Prosecuting Attorney's Office for Blaine County, Idaho. First of all, yes, there was a change of judges in the case. In his first court appearance back in January, Kohberger appeared before Judge Megan Marshall. She continued to oversee the case up until the grand jury issued its indictment. That's when court documents show Judge Judge took over. The reason for changing judges is due to the way that Idaho courts handle the flow of criminal justice cases. Before the grand jury indictment, the court was preparing for a preliminary hearing to determine if the case should proceed. As the Blaine County prosecutor explains, preliminary hearings are held in the lowest local court and without a jury. In the Moscow murders case, this meant the preliminary hearing was assigned to Judge Marshall in the magistrate court. The Idaho Supreme Court explains that magistrate judges hear less serious criminal matters as well as preliminary hearings. However, once the indictment came through, the preliminary hearing was no longer needed and the trial could proceed. At this point, the case was moved to district court, which Judge John Judge oversees. District court has jurisdiction over criminal cases and also includes a jury. So while there was a judge change, we can verify that no, it was not unexpected and was simply a part of the trial process. If you have any questions.
So that was a great explanation of why the judges were changed. Now, if you went onto YouTube and searched for changing judges, you would hear wild speculation and crazy theories of why the judge was changed. So I'm happy to bring that to you guys. And if you have any questions or if you need things verified, you could go over to Crem2, Y, the letter Y, at Crem2 at crem.com, and you can have your questions verified. So if you're a viewer and you are confused, or there's misinformation that you're listening to or seeing, right here it says, if you have any questions you'd like verified, you just email the letter Y at crem.com, and they'll answer your questions so you can get the right information. And it's important to Ed and I to bring the right information to you and not sugarcoat or sensationalize anything or give you guys false hope or false information. And that's really the whole premise behind Crime Time with DutyRon. We're bringing it to you from the police detective's perspective. And when we need a lawyer, we bring one on. We get Joe Murray, we get Melanie Little, and other great attorneys. So I wanted to talk to you about Shannon Gray, attorney for the Gonzalez family, representing them in court in Latah County. I was a bit taken back and surprised by the way he handled himself in court. Now, I'm not going to throw daggers at the guy and say he was unprofessional, but I've never seen an attorney who was trying to get a gag order either modified or lifted, or any order modified or lifted, and proceed to put the judge who's presiding on the bench, and he did that. So I want to ask you guys in the chat, by a show of hands, who felt that Shannon Gray, the attorney for the Gonzalez family, did any justice for the victim's family in court the other day. We watched it. I think all of us saw it. We watched the 51 minutes of court. I was mortified by what I watched. And I'm going to play some short clips of it here. But if you feel like he did the right thing and did a good job, press a 1 in the chat. If you feel that he did less than good to bring the argument forward for the gag order, press the 2. And I'd like to see how many 1s and how many 2s we have, because I'm always interested in seeing feedback from you all, because it's important that we get the feedback. So there's quite a bit of number 1s and a lot of number 2s coming in. You got a couple of folks who are putting the number 1 in there, and I respect both sides of this thing. I was very surprised. And if he was representing me, my adult offspring who was murdered in a case like this, I wouldn't be happy. That's just my opinion. But let's take a listen. So emotions were running high in the courtroom. It was 51 minutes, and I'm only going to play a short clip of this 51 minutes because I thought it was important for us to see and hear a little bit of the argument. And if you want to listen to the full 51 minutes, I'll link it down below. But I'm going to play a couple of clips from a couple of different news outlets. But I want to try to bring you what I think is some of the better coverage. So let's play a little bit from inside court. This is just a short little 1-minute clip. So it's about a minute and a half. So let's take a look. Hi, Cindy. Good to see you. She said, I didn't watch it. You know, a lot of people did and some didn't. But again, if you're watching the replay, let me know in the comments section down below what you thought of Shannon Gray's presentation over in court. Did he argue well for his clients? And then we're going to get into a little bit more after this. So let's let this play.
Gag like the term gag order because nobody's really gagging about it.
A judge heard arguments from the attorney of one of the victims in the Moscow quadruple homicide in relation to that gag order currently in place. Good evening. I'm Shira Matzow. Thank you for joining us here on the news at 10. Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Ethan Chapin, and Xana Kernodle were found stabbed to death in a Moscow home. 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger is charged with their murders. The attorney representing the family of Kaylee Gonzalez, Shannon Gray, is asking the court to clarify the current gag order in the case. He says it's too vague and doesn't allow the victims' families to speak freely. That order currently prevents those involved in the investigation or with knowledge of any evidence from commenting about it to the media.
This is not the same world as it was 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And it is troubling for the media, the ethical, hardworking media. I don't know what the answer is, but it's a serious threat to a fair trial.
Now, that was just a snippet from court today. The judge said he will not make a decision today, but will as soon as he is able to.
So he basically said the media and online community, social media, is not what it was 10 years or 20 years ago. It definitely, his concerns were in that small little piece that it is infringing upon the rights of the defendant. And the system has to balance justice and a fair trial all in one courtroom. And they have to be fair and impartial to both sides, the prosecution and the defense. And the defense is arguing that online sleuthing and media, social media, media coverage is basically finding their client guilty before a trial. And that's a problem. It's a big problem. So be that as it may, we are in a situation where the fight continues for a gag order to be either modified or lifted. And my opinion, and don't shoot the messenger, is that nothing will change. This trial will go off without cameras, and it will go off with this gag order in place. That is my opinion, and that is what I feel is going to happen here. Because the arguments that I heard in court the other day did not go well. did not go well at all. So let's listen to another piece
before a judge
on the gag order. So I want you guys to hear it from different areas and different folks and different people who have different opinions. But at the same time, we have to look at John Judge. He's doing the best that he can, and I think he handled himself well in all of these pre-trial proceedings. And let's just take a listen to what this reporter has to say.
Kohberger was not in shackles or in that orange jumpsuit that we've seen him in before. Instead, a suit and tie. He did not speak, as attorneys argued before a judge, about what can and can't be disclosed as this very public murder case progresses towards trial. Bryan Kohberger, the Washington State University grad student of criminology, now enters the courtroom.
We are now on the record. This is State versus Bryan Kohberger.
Charged with 4 counts of murder.
At this point, he's showing up to appear as part of his defense. So the moment he comes in after pleading, it is the defendant showing up in an image that is going to represent what he's going to look like throughout the defense.
Kohberger appearing in Latah County Court 3 weeks after he was indicted by secret grand jury on murder charges, suspected of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin were found stabbed to death inside this now boarded up off-campus home. Investigators tying him to the scene by DNA evidence. The emotions of the case felt by the judge himself, who, on the record, apologized for mispronouncing one of the victims' names.
Probably also some emotion and nerves as I read those names. And I'm sorry.
Friday, an attorney representing the Gonsalves family argued the court should lift a gag order on the case.
That's not good enough to stop the free speech of the victim's family, as well as myself.
Meanwhile, Kohberger's defense arguing cameras should be kept out of proceedings altogether, arguing in court documents that, quote, self-proclaimed experts online using video to, quote, expose their unfounded opinions, something they argue could lead to prejudicial coverage.
The big wrinkle in all of this is, as you will recall, we don't know what's happening with the death penalty. That is going to take the case in a very different direction if the state decides to put that on the table.
Many unknowns remain as both sides work through some 51 terabytes of information, including thousands of photos and hundreds of hours of recordings, all factors that experts say make an October 2nd trial date very unlikely. The judge did not rule on either of those 2 motions today, instead opting to enter a written decision at some point.
So the judge will enter a written decision at some point. We don't know when that will be. So here's the thing, right? So Shannon Gray wants the family of the Gonsalves family. He represents them. He doesn't represent anybody else, any of the other 3 victims. He wants them to be able to have an open line of communication with law enforcement, to have law enforcement share information with them. The problem is that the judge, as we know and as we found out here, is paying attention to social media. The judge is paying attention to what the media is reporting. And unfortunately, Steve Gonsalves, fighting for the right of his daughter and his family fighting for the right to speak about what happened to their daughter before this trial commences. It was, I think, looked at by the courts and by the prosecution as they potentially could be putting out information that shouldn't be out there. Example, that injuries to their daughter were substantially more severe than any of the other victims. Like that information, when I heard that come out, I cringed. Now, most of you guys might not have cringed at that, might have just went, ooh, ah, oh. I cringed because it's something that the defense could always use as some type of crutch towards their client, that information was blasted out there, not just on the media, just not by the media, but now everybody on YouTube and TikTok and Facebook, everybody picks up on that and then now starts twisting it and spinning it and adding their their 2 cents to it. And that's where it becomes a problem, you know? So, I played some file footage from some of the other victims' families, like Madison Mogen's father and Ethan Chapin's mom. And they just said, we want to just comply with and support the district attorney in prosecuting whoever's responsible for murdering our sons or daughters. And, in a perfect world, we could have everybody on the same page, but we don't live in a perfect world, and never will there ever be anybody that completely, or everybody that's completely on the same page. So what's good for one family is not going to be good for the other. And that's how it goes in this, with this case, you know? So it's not a battle that you want to have won, because again, you do want to be able to know what's going on in the case. You want to know what the district attorney is doing, but you should be able to realize and know that that stuff shouldn't be blasted all over the news or the media or on social media. And that's the thing. Chosen Rosen, thank you for becoming a channel member. Hey, Florida Pete, good to see you. Did you hear Periscope may be coming back? That should be happy days for everybody who misses the Twitter app Periscope. There's maybe a chance it might be coming back. But yeah, Debbie Galloway, Ed Wallace and myself, we feel that gag order should be left in place. We waited this long, and if the trial does kick off October 2nd, and let's just say it gets delayed a month and goes off in November, or whenever it kicks off, we're close to it. We're getting close to the start of this trial. I feel just leave it alone, and we will hear everything. Everything will unfold as that trial commences, and there will be plenty of information that we have no clue of how much they have. And we'll hear about it when this trial starts. But we, in the name of justice, we want justice to be served, whether it's innocent or guilty. But we want it to be done in a fair and impartial way where nobody can say, hey, this was not fair. So thank you, Vicky Quinn. I love this shirt. This is a World Baseball Classic, actually, from 2013. So this is an oldie but a goodie. So this is a World Baseball Classic. It's a David Wright shirt. It's got the American flag on it. It says USA. And on the back, it says Wright. He has the number 5. Here it is. So let's take a listen to the Idaho murders. The victim's family fights the gag order as Bryan Kohberger appears in court. This is another
one of the
piece.
Young Idaho college students brutally murdered, still fighting to speak openly about. This morning, the family of one of the young Idaho college students brutally murdered, still fighting to speak openly about the case as a judge hears contentious arguments over a gag order.
Doesn't the court want victims' families to have representation?
The attorney on behalf of Kaylee Gonzalez's family making the case.
If you're taking my voice away, you're taking the voice away of everything.
Authorities believe Gonzalez, along with her friends Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, were murdered by 28-year-old Bryan Kohberger, seen here back in court Friday out of his orange jumpsuit for the first time, dressed in a suit and tie. The judge at times sparring with the family's attorneys.
Would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say?
I don't think you have the authority to do.
Well, I think I do have the authority.
But Kohberger.
So that was one of the exchanges. I want to stop it right there. Shannon Gray told the judge, I don't think you have the authority to do that. The judge, John Judge, 2nd District Court judge, says, would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say? And listen to what Shannon Gray has to say here. This was one of the mind-blowing parts of this 51-minute court hearing. So let's take a listen to this.
You feel more comfortable if
sparring with the family's attorneys.
would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say?
I don't think you have the authority to, Your Honor.
Well, I think
He was trying to work with Shannon Gray. The judge was trying to feel him out and ask him, hey, it's not like Monty Hall, let's make a deal. But this judge was showing an attorney that represents one of the victims' families. He went out on a limb here and he offered him an open dialogue in court. He made this statement to him in court. And it's just amazing that his response. I'm going to just play it one last time.
Family's attorneys.
would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say?
I don't think you have the authority to, Your Honor.
Well, I think I do have the authority.
But Kohberger's attorneys arguing that the order is the
That's like somebody saying to a police officer, I just committed a crime and you don't have the authority to arrest me. I don't mean to laugh, but that was horrific. That was horrific. Let me just come back on the screen and say thank you, Chris B, for the $20 super chat. Danielle says that was so disrespectful. It was beyond disrespectful, in my opinion. It was unprofessional, and I don't know where he was going with it. Princess Mitch, well said. No respect. I mean, I don't know if he just blanked out and just didn't realize, listen, I don't know. Timmy Acosta, great to see you. I'm going to link Christopher Carpenter. I'm going to link the 51-minute hearing. You guys can all listen to it. I don't have time to play the whole thing here, but I'll link it in the description and you guys can go and check it out. So, again, just another moment of like, what? I thought I was in the Twilight Zone for a minute there, for more than a few minutes, because this thing got worse as it went on. So let's go.
only way to ensure a fair trial.
Given the vast amount of media coverage in this case, in one way, shape, or form, it will be twisted into an attack on my client.
The November 2022 murders in this off-campus house left Moscow, Idaho on edge. Police say they have amassed more than 20,000 documents, including DNA, along with items seized in Kohberger's Washington State University apartment.
If I were to predict, I would predict that he would allow greater access by the press to this particular case, but leave the gag order in place for the attorneys.
So at his arraignment, Kohberger exercised his right to stand silent, so a judge entered a non-guilty plea on his behalf. And also at the hearing, the media requested to lift an existing order preventing anyone involved in the case from speaking publicly. The judge promises to make his decision on all of these motions as soon as possible.
So there you have it, folks. The judge says he's going to give a written ruling on it. And I'm going to go out on a limb here and tell you guys that you heard it from me. And if I'm wrong, I'll eat a piece of humble pie and I'll tell you, I was wrong. But I have to say that this gag order is going to stay in place. Shannon Gray's client, Steve Gonzalez, and his entire family, emotional, very hard to say that they're wrong. But I have to say that, silence is golden here and justice will be served. The importance of sitting and speaking to the media, especially Banfield, who doesn't really give two flying craps about any of these victims in my eyes. She's more concerned about her story and getting out the message, and that's her job. So she's passionate about her job. But if it was my job, I would say, hey, we're going to have plenty of time to talk about this after this trial is over and we get justice served. There'll be plenty of time for you to come on my show and speak about this, but right now is not the time. And I'd have more respect for Banfield if she told Steve Gonzalez and his entire family that face to face. I'd have more respect for her and the news outlets, Nexstar Media. But they don't do that. They want people to talk. They want them to talk because that's part of their job. And everybody's got a job to do. But that's not my job. Is not to try to stop justice from being served or risking a family member speaking about a case or getting information about a case or inside information that they have and extract that for my benefit of a news media show in with the danger of having a trial that could be tainted. It's just not worth it. Beth, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that super sticker. Thank you to everybody for the support. Listen, sometimes the things that I say might not be the things that you want to hear, and you might disagree with me, but I respect everybody's opinions because there's a lot of people who follow me or who follow true crime that feel like there should just be an open forum of everybody talking about this, and that the district attorney should open up their files and let everybody see the evidence, all the DNA evidence, all of the cell phone records, and all of that shit. People want that out in the open and they want to look at it. But what's the benefit of that? There is no benefit of that. We'll get to hear about it and we'll get to see it. Just got to be patient. It's like a kid who wants to eat candy before the dinner. The parent should say to the kid, you can't have chocolates or candy before we eat dinner. No, little Johnny. No, little Beth, you can't have this. That's what the judge is saying to the media and is saying to Shannon Gray is, no, you can't have this because I have to do justice here. And it's my quirky way of explaining that, but really, that's how it is. If you truly care about justice, then you would not want to squeeze out rumors and information and twists and turns. You'd want to hear the real deal, what they got. Erica Olson says, why not, Ron? Chocolate is good, but you can't have your chocolate first. Lulu Love says, I'm eating chocolate right now. Dark, yummy chocolate. All right. Let me reel it back in and get on track here. So at 7 o'clock in about 30 minutes or so, 25 minutes, give or take, Sergeant Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff. That was a tongue twister. Sergeant Bill Cannon from Police Off the Cuff and maybe Mike Geary or Phil Grimaldi are going to go live, and you're going to get their take on this. I think they're going to be discussing the same thing. Wild Z Pony says, real deal equals DutyRon. Listen, I know that there would be a lot of people if I said, oh, open the floodgates, put the cameras in the courtroom, and let's get the flow of information out there. There would be a lot of people that would get behind me and charge with that, right? But it's not the right thing. It's not. And like I said, my thoughts come from inside information behind the scenes of how the justice system works and how attorneys and defense attorneys work and how attorneys for the state, the district attorneys work. I've worked with them over my 20 years in the police department in the NYPD, and I know how both sides go. And if you have that knowledge and you know how that works, and you've seen it work in front of you live, then you have a better understanding of it. And you understand, you still get pissed off that you can't get the information because we're human, right? Human nature, you want the info, but you have a better understanding. It's an easier way to accept it is by knowing exactly what happens in the process. All right. I got a couple of things. This is the gag order, 51 minutes. I'm just going to play a little bit of this gag order hearing because I know a lot of you guys want to see this, but this is what I'm going to link down below in the description. So this is the full hearing. Obviously, I'm not going to play it all because at 7 o'clock, I'm going to be ending this live stream and we're going to go to Police Off the Cuff and watch Bill and whoever his co-hosts are. But I want you guys to hear Shannon Gray talk. So let me cue it up to him. This is him with his argument. So I'll play just a little bit of this.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gray.
All right, so we'll listen to Shannon Gray for a little bit. This is the attorney for Steve Gonzalez.
First, Your Honor, we'd like to thank you for apologizing to the victim's family. I think it was an emotional day for them, and they appreciate your apology. I know that they took that part up. Thank you. I first want to start with the procedural history of this non-dissemination order, if I could. On January 3rd, 2023, the Judge Marshall submitted a non-dissemination order. And in that order, it applied to parties in the action, which would have been the prosecution, the defense, and any agents, investigators involved in it. After that non-dissemination order was issued, I reached out to the prosecutor's office to see if I could get Judge Marshall's email. For some reason, I don't know if they took it down, but I couldn't find it online. And they informed me that they were not privy to give me that information. Then on January 13th,
I'm going to stop this just for a second because I'm going to fast forward it to the parts where they get into the back and forth. But I want to highlight this comment on the screen. Karen, thank you, Brindenthal. She said, I totally respect you, Ron. And guess what, Karen? I respect you and your thoughts and opinions. I respect everyone's thoughts and opinions as long as they're as long as they're conveyed in a respectful manner, and this is in a very respectful manner. So Kim Bridenthal says, I totally respect you, Ron, and in your opinion, even if I disagree. I have unsubscribed from 2 channels that have hard line opinions, as do some guests, and no mods. Listen, I have a hard opinion on this, but my opinion comes from a law enforcement perspective. People can disagree with what your opinion is of it, but mine is based on fact. Mine is based on the judicial system. Mine is based on seeing justice served in many different cases. And when you have a toxic bowl of soup, like what's swirling around in this University of Idaho 4 massacre, it is a recipe for disaster, and the court has acknowledged it, the defense has acknowledged it, and so has the prosecution. The sooner everybody can understand that this is no good, and this happens in all of these big high-profile cases, people want, and human nature is, gimme, 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 gimme. But gimme comes at a very high price. And it's selfish to say gimme, 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 when it's not your family member who's been slaughtered. And I think that Steve Gonzalez is misinformed, and Shannon Gray is not helping him. And that's my opinion. He is not helping him at all. So, but I digress. If you feel that Shannon Gray is doing a great job, I respect that. But I'm going to respectfully disagree with you. So let's put the rest of this up because I got a lot to cover here. And I want to get to the exchange with the attorney. Here we go.
Parties to the above entitled action. So you can see the difference is that the first one dealt with parties to the case. The second one went way over the top, addressing all attorneys that might be associated with the case or any attorneys that might have an interested party in this case. So that's where we are today. I filed the motion based on that additional language. Now, I'd like to get into some of the issues here. It's very clear that I am not a party to the case and the victims' families are not a party to the case. That's very clear through all of the case law.
I agree with that, right? But when the victim's family is given information early on by the Moscow Police Department, What did they do with that information? And I'm going to come back on the screen before this judge answers. When the victims' families, when Steve Gonzalez and his daughter and his wife went on national and local television and talked about intimate details of this case before we even had a murder suspect in custody, innocent until proven guilty, Bryan Kohberger. Before Kohberger was arrested, we had information that was being put out that should not have been put out by the family. So the DA, the police chief, and the entire judicial process in Latah County, they were like, shut it down. Don't give any more information to the Gonzalez family because they're going to put it out. And they're not doing that to be mean. Let me explain. They're not doing that to be mean to this family. They have a lot of compassion for this family. They have a lot of empathy. There's a lot of emotions on the prosecution and police investigative side. But they can't let justice not be served because of a loose lip ship. Loose lips sink ships. And they, before all of this happened, before there was a defendant in custody, they were leaking out information about autopsies, about defensive wounds, and about their daughter having more wounds than the other. All of that information should never have been out there. So that's why this gag order will remain in effect and will not be even modified. He's willing to try to work with them, but you'll hear what happens when he tries to work with them.
Well as.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes.
There's no dispute about that.
Okay, then
Your clients are not parties. The only parties of this case are the state and Mr. Kohberger.
Thank you.
That's
okay.
And that's clear. That's clear in the case law with regard to any victims or victims' families. There are constitutional protections and statutory protections for victims and their families.
I would agree.
That's well established.
So let's get into the actual non-dissemination order itself, how it addresses to me personally as the attorney for the victim's family. This non-dissemination order, of all of the cases and all of the motions that were filed, and referencing every case that was listed in this case, none of them apply to a victim's attorney, an attorney representing the victims. The Idaho v. Tapp case was an attorney speaking about a judge who he was in front of. The Good case was a defense attorney that spoke to the media. The Mezabov case was a defense attorney and a prosecutor. The Morrissey case was a defense attorney and a press conference. Varner versus Delahunty was an attorney and a judge, all parties to the case. Cutler was a defense attorney, U.S. v. Cutler.
And if I'm recalling correctly, the state has suggested or has determined that your clients are witnesses potentially. So that's kind of the
and I can address that, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
As part of that is that, let's just make it clear, the victim's family has never been involved in this investigation, ever, from the get-go. After Mr. Kohberger was indicted, we received no information about anything regarding the prosecution, nothing. They wouldn't even tell us that a grand jury was being impaneled for Mr. Kohberger.
You're helping me understand what the issues are, so thank you.
Well, so that's really the issue here. I mean, and this is an important ruling because what you're doing is this has never happened before, ever has it happened before, that a Judge Marshall, has tried to silence the attorneys for victims. Never has it happened that I'm aware of.
Would you feel more comfortable if there was a more concrete description of what people could say and what they can't say?
I don't think you have the authority to, Your Honor.
Well, I think I do have the authority.
Well, my argument is that, part of the argument is that,
In fact, I know I have the authority to do that.
well, and the authority would be through your the attempt to have a fair and impartial jury, that you can control people that are involved in the case, correct?
That's part of it.
And we're not involved in the case.
Okay, that's hard to accept, but.
We're not witnesses in the case, we're not involved in the investigation, we're not involved in the litigation. I can't file any motions, I can't subpoena anybody, I can't cross-examine witnesses, I can't do anything. So this idea that there's this loose idea that there may be.
See, so I wish that the judge would be able to say, and he can't in open court, but I wish that the judge would have been able to say is, look, you know, the information that was given out to your clients, whether it was given to him by police, the prosecution, the Latah County medical examiner, or, you know, whoever it was given to him by, they should have kept that to themselves. So, and Shannon Gray knows that, and he knows that. But for whatever reason, you know, like this whole 51 minutes and 52 seconds, just to me was just him barking about them being able to talk to the media. And there's going to be plenty of time to talk to the media, but you saw the judge's demeanor and the way he was looking at him. You know, telling a judge that you don't have the authority to do this, this, and this in his own courtroom it would be like me inviting you over to my house and you telling my wife that you don't like her food and you don't like how she decorates our home and that you don't like how she conducts a party, a house party. I don't know if anybody here would do that, but if you did do that, I would dismiss you and tell you to get out of my house. So that's essentially what he did there. And if he was going there to try to fight for his clients to have a gag order revised or withdrawn, that's effectively what he did. And that's the best way I could put it together for you in basic layman's terms. He went into this guy's courtroom and told him that he has no authority. It was ridiculous. So let me know in the chat. Let's do this poll. If you think the gag order should remain in effect, press a 1. If you think it should be modified or removed, all right, modified 2. Removed totally 3. So in order, here it is again. If the gag order should remain in effect, put a 1. If you think it should be modified, 2. If you think it should be completely uplifted, 3. So you have 3 choices: 1, 2, and 3. Go. I see a lot of 1s. I see some 2s. I see some people who want a modified gag order. Nellie B, it means that he's going at this for the wrong reasons. He wants his clients to be able his client to be able to speak to the media. And right now, speaking to the media is not helpful. It really isn't. It's not helpful because they don't have any information. Anything that they would say would be pure speculation. Speculation right before a trial or leading up to a trial is never good. That's why we will rarely hear any type of speculation here on this channel. Modified in what way? I don't know. So a lot of number 1s, very few number 2s, and then I didn't see but a handful of number 3s. So the problem with the media and the problem with social media is that everybody twists. Like if there's a story, as you know, as it gets filtered through the Twitter spheres, the Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, all of the YouTube, it all gets twisted and turned. So if you have a story, by the time it's filtered and put out through hundreds of thousands of different people, or thousands or whatever of different people, it gets twisted and turned. And that's never a good thing. All right, listen, guys, I appreciate each and every one of you. And I hope that you consider following me on all things social media, all one word, DutyRon. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. So those are the 5 platforms that I'm on. It's all one word, DutyRon. You can engage with me on social media, Twitter. I'm watching all the time on Twitter. We're going to have a great guest. I'm going to try to get her this week. Tracy Walder from News Nation. She's a ex-FBI and CIA agent. We're going to have her come on and talk about this Bryan Kohberger case. So I'm going to try to get her. I've been back and forth with conversation with her for weeks and weeks and weeks. But Tracy's going to join us. I think it'll be a really interesting live stream. Thank you, Nellie B, for the clarification. I meant the gag order should apply to the media too. Yeah, I agree. And it is. The media, the media is putting their twists and turns because the gag order is directed at them. They have a lawsuit against the court. And then it's going to go nowhere. They're wasting their time. Thank you, Black Rose, for the DutyRon.com. Anika, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Thank you for the support. Again, everybody, please understand it is a difficult at best situation. Brenda, you said it well. It's you're having a hard time sifting through fact versus fiction. Go over to Creme 2 and you can send emails to get clarification and verification of fact versus fiction. Remember, the Moscow police chief had a spot on his own website. The Moscow police chief had a rumors and what was it? Fact or fiction rumors section of their website where they were dispelling all the rumors. Does anybody remember that? By a show of hands, if you remember it. 1, if you don't know it. 2. But if you remember that, they set up a section of the Moscow police website just to dispel the false information. That was early on. They were doing that before Christmas. That happened in late November. These murders happened November 13th. By the end of November, around Thanksgiving, they had the dispelling falsehoods and misinformation. So it's crazy. And again, I always respect victims' families. This by no way is a diss to Steve Gonzalez. Look at Maddie Mogen's dad. Look at what Ethan Chapin's mom, Stacy, had to say. She basically said, we're going to remain silent. We want the justice process. We want the wheels of justice to spin. And the wheels of justice are spinning right now. They're moving forward. Gracie, thank you for the super sticker. Much appreciated. Thank you to everyone who's here and who watches the replays. You guys are what makes this a great place. Thank you for giving. If you can right now while you're here, give this video a thumbs up, like and subscribe. Leave me a question down below in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about this presentation. I'm not perfect. At the end of the day, I'm a human being just like you guys, and I don't script out. There's no script in front of me. There's just little notes here and there, but there's no script to what I do. I go live and I give it to you straight from my experience. And it's as authentic and as accurate as I could give it to you. And that's what you'll get here. I don't create fluff. I don't create oohs and ahs. I don't take you down rabbit holes. I don't take you down dark alleys. I'm trying to just give it to you the way it is, So if you like that, consider subscribing. You can always, if it's not for you, you can always just unsubscribe. I mean, that's the best way I can put it. You can just try us out. Ed Wallace and I, we give you true crime, straight talk on true crime. So you guys are going to be redirected over to Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. They're going to be starting in about 2 minutes. So Bill and maybe Mike Geary, Professor Mike Geary, might be live, and they're going to give you their thoughts on this. And Bill Cannon is a retired homicide detective sergeant. Mike Geary is a retired sergeant and an attorney. They're going to talk about this gag order and the emotions that are running high throughout social media. And again, News Nation and Banfield, I used to have a tremendous amount of respect for Banfield, and it's all gone down the toilet because of her actions. When I heard her say that she bought a burner phone to call every day Bryan Kohberger in jail, like, are you freaking kidding me? When I heard her say that, I was mortified. It was so gross that I was just like,
oh, hell no.
You didn't just say that, did you? You didn't just say you bought a burner phone on News Nation to call every day Bryan Kohberger in jail and hoping that he'll call you back. I was like,
oh, hell no.
Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. That's what she did. And she said it. I mean, her words, not mine. What in the actual F is that? Hold on. I'll say the real word. What in the actual